Well, Laura, since we only have you with us for a small amount of time,
Hmm.
I do want to just get started. If others trickle in here, their loss. But we're recording this session. Um, so first, thanks for taking the time to be with us. I had asked you if you'd be willing to just share a little bit about the Advent devotional, which you wrote and compiled for this year, and to just share any thoughts that are helpful for us as we are about to engage in this, as well as any thoughts on what it was like for you compiling it.
Sure. Okay. Um, I am, well, I'm obviously Laura Stone. I live in Indiana, and I'm the district minister. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I'm the district minister we have 37 churches in this district. It's the sort of southern and central Indiana. Most of my career has been in music ministry, in mental health, and chaplaincy with some spiritual direction on the side. So I think you'll hear probably resonances of those things. And I certainly was also writing it with a view to my churches, the churches that are in my care. By the way, this is Samwise, my Great Dane, in the back seat. I was writing it with a view to my congregations. We are, I think, in a similar way to the denomination, lots of diversity of theology, at least in terms of the sort of political spectrum and how that sort of works with our faith. And so the challenge, I think, in writing it was the chaplain's challenge and the spiritual director's challenge, which was to find something to say that's so true universally, that sort of cuts through some of the stuff that we fight about and gets sort of underneath some of that. So my hope is that by and large, people will find things that resonate deeply. And I taught the introduction looks at that word resonate in terms of a musical framework, and how that works with the stories and the songs of the season. I also find I have not ever been a preacher, but I always have been like a music minister and highly involved in churches during Advent and Christmas and Lent and Easter. And I find those times to be actually sort of some of the hardest times of the year to find something new to say. And so I often just sort of lean into the old, right? Sort of, it's like cliches are cliches for a reason. These sort of old things that are familiar to us are familiar because they resonate deeply within us. And so how can we lean into that and lean into the way that routine and rhythm holds us and forms us, and how, every year we come back to the same stories and the same songs, but different parts of those stories and songs may resonate with us because we're a different person and God's doing a different thing in our lives. So I'm hopeful you'll find kind of that perspective and some things that'll encourage and challenge and make you think, and hopefully some things that'll resonate with you, and maybe some things that don't resonate with you as much. So I set it up. I have enjoyed using the Advent wreath. And so I've set it up, and there are two different ways to understand the Advent wreath, or the themes of the Advent wreath. You've got hope, let's see, hope, peace, joy, love, and you've got prophets, Bethlehem, shepherds, and angels. And I've sort of combined those. I wrote introductions for each of the weeks that aren't in the book that I'm gonna use as a supplement to those. If you want to watch for those, they'll be on my blog and on my Facebook post. But they essentially sort of talk about the reasoning behind each of the sets of themes. Each week looks at things around like the first week is hope and prophet. And so we spend a lot of time in Isaiah in the first week. So that piece, Jason, I'll send you the link for that. I may even put it in the chat here if people want to sort of keep an eye out for those. I also really highly recommend, I'm somebody who likes using, I worked in a Catholic church for a while, and in Catholic churches, you get 3 long scriptures every Sunday. And I really enjoyed sort of bathing in that much scripture. And so the devotional itself has the 1 line of scripture, but I really encourage you to read the whole section of scripture that I have there. And I also, as I was writing them, I was listening on repeat to the song of the day and allowing that to sort of inform my reading of the scripture, and those two to pair with each other. So I also highly recommend either singing or listening to the song for the day. The hope is that all of those will work together. I was going to say something about that. Oh, all the songs are from the Blue Hymnal and the 2 Mennonite supplements, the 1 Mennonite supplement, really. It's the Sing the Story.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you all use those?
We do occasionally.
I'm guessing you are.
We do occasionally use songs from there. We don't have them in our pews.
Okay. So those, if there's a song that's unfamiliar to you, that's a moment to maybe go to the YouTube or Spotify playlist and just listen to it. But although I used almost all of the Advent and Christmas hymns. The other piece that I would say is I am a little bit of an Advent purist. I try to be not legalistic about that, but I also think there's something important in the sort of waiting and anticipation and the resisting the urge for quick resolution, right? Resisting the urge to dive into Christmas before we've really spent time preparing and waiting and watching and acknowledging the yearning that's deep within us. I think that's part of Advent, is this sort of yearning for light. So this devotional is actually, we don't get to much around the Christmas story until right before Christmas. Like the 23rd, 24th, 25th is when we start getting into the story. And then most of the story then happens after Christmas. So the temptation, I think, for a lot of people is to do the Advent devotional and then we get to Christmas and then, hey, we're done. And I confess to doing that myself too. But in this devotional, you'll miss a lot if you stop at Christmas. You'll want to go all the way through Epiphany, which is January 6th. I hope that's not too frustrating. I hope that feels like a good stretch.
Yeah, I hope that's a helpful tool for us to be disciplined in the same way that you're talking about encouraging us in that way.
Yeah, when I was a music minister, it was always like we'd always sprinkle Christmas songs in, because the reality is for us, all of this stuff is already and not yet, right? Theologically, those pieces are always side by side for us. But I tried to stay with Advent songs. There are actually a lot of rich Advent songs. We're not as familiar with them, but then, you know, you really can sing Christmas songs all the way into February. You know, I mean, Christmas can go all the way to Michaelmas. For some people, it goes all the way to Michaelmas. So we then leaned into Christmas songs in January, which then helps people feel like they got a chance to sing their Christmas songs. So you'll see Christmas songs and Advent songs sort of side by side in this one. But yeah, hang with it if you're willing all the way to January 6th. There also, I started out writing on the wrong set of dates. So I had to switch a whole bunch of things. I mean, it actually wasn't a terrible thing to switch up, but what it meant was that I ended up with one extra devotional that's going to be on my blog on December 23rd. So if you stick with my blog, you'll and or my Facebook page, you'll get that extra bonus devotional that I wrote accidentally. That didn't make it in the book. Yeah, that's sort of what I have to offer. Yeah,
thank you.
Do you have questions?
I'm looking at the time. Yeah, I'm looking at the time. It's 9:29, so I don't want to hold you. I did just want to say thank you for all the work that went into this. It's a labor of love and a gift to the denomination. And I just wanted to say thank you for doing that hard work. Because I know that, I mean, I don't know, I've never done it, but I've heard that it's a lot of work. So just thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
Laura, yeah. I just sent you a friend request on Facebook. I'm friendly.
Perfect. Perfect. I will do that. And I'll send Jason the link so that he can get it to you all. I also, one thing that I'm proud in a properly humble brethren way. I committed to, in the prayers, I did them all Trinitarian, God, a request of God, a request of Christ, and a request of the Spirit. And I committed myself to using different verbs, to not repeating a verb ever in those prayers. And I managed it. It took a lot, but I think part of the exercise for me was realizing how many ways God shows up in our lives. And we tend to sort of go to the same verbs or the same understandings of how God works. But if we stretch ourselves, there are so many ways that God shows up in our lives. So you can watch for that too, and kind of chuckle at it when you're like, wow, that's an interesting verb there.
Well,
okay.
thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Yes, send our greetings to your home church.
Thank you. Will do.
See ya.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Yep. So, Laura, in case you came in and weren't sure, we could only have Laura for a little bit of time this morning because she has some Sunday school responsibilities at the church that she's at. She is the district executive for Southern Eastern Indiana, Central. There it is. I was like, I know there's another term in there. Southern Central Indiana. So she was, since we use this devotional, we thought we'd bring her in and share a little bit and reflect on that. In a little bit, we're going to have Naomi share a little bit about the other Advent devotional we're using, but this is more informing our worship, and this is a weekly devotional. This is a daily devotional by the denomination. You'll find these in the back of the sanctuary. So this will start next Sunday. If you haven't grabbed one yet, you can grab one and work through that time, that Advent devotional. Laura Stone, who was just with us, I asked if she would just share briefly some of her thoughts and reflections as we prepare to engage in this. And there was a couple things there that I thought were interesting that I wanted to check in with all of you about. I'm curious. She mentioned a little bit about this this difference between like Christmas and Advent, and mentioned the intentionality that she has about kind of resisting the temptation to get right to Christmas. And I'm curious what you all thought about that from a worship planning perspective. We too have had these conversations, and I remember this being in the past with Josh and with Greg having similar conversations about like we want to like sing Christmas music. We want to sing this, like we want to get there and do this familiar stuff. But what does it say about wanting to be patient and kind of wait for Christmas to come? I think even particularly in the world around us where like there's this desire to, I mean, what was it, like weeks ago, you could go into department stores and there's just like holly everywhere. And I'm not like saying that there's anything wrong with that, but this tendency for us to just want it to be here. And look, I have 2 young kids, so they're just like, when's Christmas, when's Christmas? And we didn't put our tree up. We usually try to put it up. I usually try to like wait till after Thanksgiving, but we were cleaning up the house yesterday and like we were this close to putting it up. And I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with that, but the question is, well, how do we think about that? And yeah, what does Advent mean to you in anticipation of Christmas? I guess is my question. Have you thought about and processed that, or we just kind of like Christmas is Christmas and this is just leading up to it? It's just a matter of time of waiting.
I thought about it. Like you said, there's a lot of cultural things
Yeah.
that push you the other way. But I mean, for as long as I've even been aware of what the story is, it seems like this idea of waiting and not jumping right into the happy part is closer to recapturing the original stories. Makes sense to me. Lent's a little bit the same way.
Lent, yeah, leading up to Easter, yeah, true.
It gives you, I don't know, for me, it gives you a chance to anticipate what's going to come and try to prepare for it. We always have an Advent wreath on our table. And we light the candles and so forth. And the kids, you get together with the kids they make Christmas lists.
Mhm.
And it's a part of it. You're just kind of not just jumping into
Right.
all that stuff under the, but it gives you a chance to think about it and prepare for it,
Mhm.
get organized for it. So I think it's a good thing. You're getting ready for it.
Yeah. I feel like it requires some discipline, because, or intention, I shouldn't say discipline, but intentionality to do that, because there's so much temptation to just be like, it's Christmas. And like you had mentioned culturally too, there's that.
And kids.
And kids, yeah.
For me, it's the music.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's
And
too,
When
yeah.
I sing the music December 1st, it's one way. But when I sing it on December 24th, 25th, it's a different feeling.
Yeah.
So I think, I would miss just singing it, waiting till the 24th, the 25th to sing it, because it's beautiful music and has rich meaning for me. And it prepares me for that
Yeah.
December. So I'm more apt to say, start early and say, I think we could sing some of those songs in summertime, really.
Yeah.
Because it's the meaning behind those songs. But on Christmas Eve, when we have the church fellowship together here at the candle lighting service, the meaning is much richer.
Mhm.
It changes from when I sing it December 1st to when I sing it.
Yeah.
So music is important.
Yeah.
There's no reason why you can't go back and forth. In some settings or on Sundays, would be more in line with what she's talking about. And when you're on your own and kind of reflecting on things, you might go a different way. And you don't have to just pick one story and stick with it.
Yeah. there's a richness in the diversity of those things, I think, because, yeah, I sometimes it just like feels really good to listen to a Christmas song when it's not Christmas, or in Advent leading up to it. But I think there's also value in that waiting, giving that space and time.
Our
Well, and
family,
I'd say it's, oops, sorry. Go ahead.
our family always comes home for Thanksgiving. And one of the things, which is coming up like momentarily. But we always have told them, you know, as they got older, they make their Christmas list before they come. And then while they're there, then we have these little meetings where we get together and decide who's gonna get what for whom.
Yeah.
And it kind of just makes it getting ready and anticipating. And then we get to Advent, and we have the Advent wreath on the table. And they expect, you know, we light the candle every week. And it kind of flows together, sort of, I think.
Yeah. Naomi, you were gonna say something. Maybe. Oh, I just lost her. She'll be back. I guess. Yeah.
I was gonna say that it was really different when I became a pastor
Mm-hmm.
and read the lectionary
Mm-hmm.
for each of those Sundays and began to realize things that I'd never thought about for Christmas before. And I thought, here, I've grown up in the church all my life and basically have been thinking of Christmas as being getting ready for the gift giving, you know, and getting ready for the family gathering, rather than the end of the world is going to come, which is the first Sunday. You know, kind of like all of that awareness of hey, what's this? Where does this all lead to eventually? And I really chafed when a lot of my, especially, excuse me if anybody was Lutheran, but my Lutheran friends would say, you don't sing them until, you know, you got to sing only Advent, you know. And I'm thinking, but look, listen to the nuances of all the other carols. They have those dimensions in them also.
Mm-hmm.
And it picks out a piece of those carols to think about what it's like to be thinking about preparing for the ultimate conclusion of creation. That otherwise wouldn't be there. We didn't have some sense of that.
Right.
But I
You don't
have
need to be let in.
Oh, no, she was just in and then she left again, so we'll,
I don't know what all those things mean.
in and out.
yeah.
Anyway, and I know we don't emphasize second coming kind of stuff.
Right.
Full
Right, but it's part of the
in our
lecture.
tradition, but it is part of the lectionary. And we got to figure out how we understand that if we
Yeah.
don't understand it the traditional way. I understand it as being good news. It isn't just on our shoulders to make the world perfect. We're never going to get there.
For me, part of the downside of having such a long period of time are the advertisements
Oh, yeah.
everywhere. I mean, it just, not again. So I kind of dread Advent Christmas for that reason. Oh, here we go again. All these mindless, you know, lottery selling things. And also, it always was jarring for me on the first Sunday of Advent to sing Joy to the World, the Lord has come. It just, no, we're not ready for that yet.
Mhm.
Wouldn't have thought of that as an Advent hymn either.
Yeah. And I'm also aware of all the grief that many
Yeah.
people and trauma many people have around this whole season. Because things happened during that time and people died during that time. And it's not a happy time. And everybody else is supposedly happy, but they're not.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a mixed thing. And part of me likes Thanksgiving better than Christmas. I mean, there's not all it's that family, if it's good family that time to,
Yeah,
even though it's complicated historically.
yeah, sure.
I feel like you're talking about me. So I struggle during December and I struggle with the Christmas season to feel close to God and all that. And I also prefer Thanksgiving over Christmas. But yeah, I wanna try and give it a shot and see what I can, how I can make this season special.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of folks, there's this nostalgia to it too, either about like, like, oh, you have these, like, families try so hard to make like Christmas special. And so there's often these like memories that are tied up with that. But then as you get older too, there's like the realities of life and things and loss and grief and suffering. And some Christmas is the first Christmas without a loved one, and, as parents, I know Ashley and I, we always are trying to like, we need to make this special for our kids, because we have these memories and we need to make memories and there's pressure that comes with that too, than just kind of being present, with one another in those moments. And maybe that's part of what Advent is too, is kind of preparing ourselves for just like life, which isn't always Christmas songs,
There is a service here
Oh, yeah,
for,
Liz is gonna do that one, I think,
Yeah.
the longest night service. It's
Longest
gonna be
night.
on the, I think 21st, it's either 21st or 2nd, but I think it's 21st. Like a longest night / Blue Christmas kind of service. Naomi, you are connected to us. You were gonna say something, and then I turned to you and I was like, oh, Naomi, did you have something to say? And then you disappeared.
I'm sneaky like that.
Yeah,
I've been going back and forth with, because it's a little clippy, but I don't know if it's on my end or if it's on that end. It was with Laura. So can you hear me okay?
yeah, it skips a little bit, but in general, we can hear you.
Yeah.
So maybe
And
speak
it's-
slowly.
I will speak very slowly. What I was going to say is, and maybe you said this while I was, it's more than just waiting for the sake of waiting, right? It's leaning into that human emotion of longing and what then can develop during that time, during that space that can't do of satisfaction or comfort or, I think of it sometimes similar to grief, lament, that which is for us, but how important that is in the process of human emotion. But anyway, that was what I was going to say. Shall I go ahead and share a bit about
Yeah.
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 Hopefully if I drop, I'll as I can. I'm on the 17th floor of a hotel. I'm in San Diego for the American Academy of Religion conference. It's 6:05 in the morning here. So if there's time, I can provide bonus material about this conference, or I could share about that on another day. But this other devotional is from a Sanctified, which is a small ecumenical company. I use the right word. Essentially, I think entirely female clergy who have decided to start this creative effort to materials for congregations to use. We used their materials I think that was the first time, right? This is just the second time we've used their stuff. The big sign that's now hanging in the hall, since just in the last couple of weeks it had been my office, sign is not the right word, but the big colored in image was what many of you will remember during Lent. One of the things, there's I like about the resources that the Sanctified Art provides. One of the things I love, opportunity for unique congregational involvement. So if you recall during Lent, of each worship service, we had a couple of people come up and color in part of that large image. That's what's hanging in the hall. I actually have a couple, I put together a couple. Is it okay if I share my screen
Yeah, yes.
and
If
see
it
if
works.
I can, yeah, okay, give me a second because technology share. If I can't, it's not the end of the world.
So that sign is actually hanging right outside between my office and room 110. You'll see it when you go by outside my office.
Good.
Okay,
Yeah,
can you see my
we can
screen?
see that. Yep.
Awesome. So that's the design on the front cover of the devotional booklet. This is the actual front cover devotional booklet. And so a sanctified art, that's the thing I was saying. That's the name of the group of materials together. I've mentioned this, but you might be able to tell. I mentioned this at board, but you might be able to tell from the cover that one of the artistic that this season's devotional is leaning into is quilting. So the background is there, sort of give this fabric textured sense. And then the symbol on the front cover is kind of a quilted artistic representation of an advent. So if you notice, there's 5 stars, 1 in the center and 4 around. One way to interpret this image is sort of the Advent candle wreath with the 4 Advent candles and then the 1 in the center. And this is just a little blip of their work, which is on the back cover of the devotional, but I thought share this and then a little bit more about this series itself. Sanctified Art is a collective of artists in ministry who create resources for worshiping. The Sanctified Art team works collaboratively to bring scripture and theological theme to life. What's that?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. Life through film, visual art, curriculum, coloring pages, liturgy, graphics, and more. Their mission is to empower churches with resources to inspire creativity and beyond. Driven by the connective and prophetic power of art, art helps us connect our hearts with our hands, our faith with our lives, yes, with our God. And so that's, I see my connection is unstable. Can you still hear me okay?
Yeah, there was a couple words that dropped out there.
Gotcha.
The last part was our faith with our lives and our mess with our God.
Our mess.
Mess.
Our mess. So that's a bit about their work. And then this whole thing, this is also in the devotional. So I invite you to grab a copy of the back of the sanctuary. But this is the first page that sort of describes their perspective on Advent and how this series that they've designed with the larger context of Advent. And so what they've done is the theme words from the beginning. I'm sorry, words for the beginning, although I think also maybe from the beginning. And, you know, Laura mentioned a little bit about this idea of kind of the of Advent. Like, do we have something new to say? We've been there before. And that's actually, I think, part of the point. This is a very old story, and we continue to go back to find new ways of understanding or new insights that the story has for our lives today. So this when you desire, but there are 7 sort of those 7 worship services that will be included in this. On the left side of the screen there are the 4 traditional event Sundays. So December 1st, I'm not going to do the dates off the top of my head, but that'll on the left side through, I think the 22nd is the Sunday right before Christmas. And then on the right, Love Knows Your Name will be the theme for Christmas Eve. And then don't forget, will be the Sunday right after Christmas, and The Road Isn't Straight will be the 6th, whatever Sunday it is that's closest to the 6th, the Epiphany Sunday. So these are sort of the 7 topics that we will be focusing on during worship. And there is a quilt block for each week. And what we're going to do, I have had a wonderful time working with and allowing the quilting group to run with of way that we could incorporate these quilt blocks into the worship service. So you will see emerging each Sunday utilizing these 7 quilt blocks. And each we'll need to, maybe we'll include this on the order of worship or something, Jason. We'll have to talk about that because each of these quilt has sort of a descriptor. So for example, on the first, You Are a Blessing, the first Sunday, kind of to be, I forget what the name of that quilt block is. I don't have that open. But the imagery is, if you can see, it's like a very simplified angel. That small, kind of the head of the angel here, and then the body. That's what that is to evoke. The second week here, this is a log cabin quilt block, which has been used for probably hundreds of years in quilting. So some of these are, and some of these are kind of spins on traditional quilt designs. And so we'll a little bit more about that during worship services. The devotional, unlike the Church of the Brethren Press devotional, which is a daily devotional, this devotion with our series is a weekly devotional. Now you could still use it on a daily basis, but it's not like Lent. The Lent devotional we had was every day. That's not the way this one is set up. So this one is oriented around the weeks. And for each week, each theme. So for You Are a Blessing, for example, there's a lovely poem that I anticipate honestly using probably next Sunday during service. There's a song, and all of the songs that they've created for this series are tune of familiar hymns, but with new lyrics that connect in with we will be using some of them in worship and others we won't be, but several of them are included. So for example, the hymn that they've written new lyrics to for next week is to the tune of The Lord the Almighty, which if you don't know what that is off the top of, when I say it, I suspect you'll recognize when you hear it, but it's with new lyrics that connect in with this idea of you are a blessing. And I do believe we are using that one during worship next Sunday as well. And then there's some scripture readings that are connected with the lectionary. So these would be usual. So we've got some Isaiah, we've got some Luke. That's the lectionary pattern for the. And there's a bit of a reflection about those scripture texts, including and a prayer. And then there's, for each week, there's 2 or just have 1 piece of art. And this is one of the art pieces the first week. And then there's a reflection by the artist on this piece and how it connects the theme as well. And again, some of those may appear during worship. I suspect art will be in the devotional for your own reflection. So really could certainly spend some time in this devotional every day and reflect on it. I think that it will be nice to have this as we use some of these songs and poems and art pieces in worship to go back and look at them later, or to look at pieces that we did not end up using in the worship service. There is so much music to choose from during this season, and so it's a process thinking through what is the best to use for each worship service. But yeah, so that gives you, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of this worship theme and this resource that's available. There are, again, quite a few copies in the back, and the office will help us print more when that are currently in there disappear. So I'm happy to answer questions as I'm able, but I hope that I think that's the only.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any other slides. So I will stop sharing.
So we're going to be encouraging folks to take these with them. And as Naomi said, we will be refreshing them in the back as they disappear. So please feel free to take one with you today to share in your own family. So we're using this as our worship theme throughout Advent. And so if you have this, you'll be able to kind of see some of the stuff that's coming up. and particularly some of the themes and scripture, which we'll be looking at during Advent.
I'd like to comment here. Yesterday, we were at the fair here, and going out, someone came up to us and said, "I need a post-election hug." The shock and the grief and the who are we and how do we have hope is every day. It just hits me yet.
Yeah.
I don't think I can't imagine getting over it anytime soon.
Mhm.
And every topic that I saw up there grips me. Every topic. I'm blessed. What is ours to do? How do we find hope? I mean, that is so right on for such a time as this.
The one that grabbed me the
And I
most,
don't think it has to be, oops, sorry, go ahead, Dad.
I was just gonna say, the one that grabbed me the most was hope is worth the risk, and I thought,
Yeah.
that's gonna be Christmas Sunday. That'll be amazing. I know you always do amazing stuff. All three of you do amazing stuff with any theme that we have, but I look forward to that one in particular.
Going to say these phrases, these words are not complicated. We don't need to complicate it. What is the essence? Perhaps that's where we need to go right now. The essence of how we understand God's love, how we understand being in relationship with one another. And I don't, yeah, and use foundation for taking the next small step and the next small step.
Yeah. Yeah, if they were up on the screen there, you probably saw them, but first Sunday is You Are a Blessing. Second Sunday is We Can't Go Alone. Third Sunday in Advent is Do the Good That Is Yours to Do. Fourth Sunday is Hope is Worth the Risk. Christmas Eve is Love Knows Your Name. First Sunday after Christmas is Don't Forget to Laugh. And Epiphany Sunday is The Road Isn't Straight. So yeah, I think these will be good, challenging themes for us this Advent season as we, hold and burden the realities of life, the joys that come from being with friends and family, or the sorrows that come with being with friends and family, the challenges that I think we all know exist in the complexity of our lives. And holding all of that together. Naomi, thanks for taking the time to talk a little bit about this. We have about 15 minutes left, but I'm going to say 10 minutes because I need to get over to the sanctuary. So we're going to wrap things up about 5 minutes early. So we have about 10 minutes here. I'm curious if there was anything you wanted to share about your time at the conference, if there's anything that stuck out to you particularly, any familiar faces or anything like that that you've been enjoying.
Yeah. So I flew out on Thursday. If you follow my social media, I spent Chicago. And so I came out on Thursday and spent then some time Friday with my grandfather in Laverne before coming down here to San Diego. The conference that I'm at is the American Academy of Religion, and it is two conferences at the same time. The other one is the Society for Literature. So last evening I saw Steve Schweitzer, who's the Dean of Bethany Seminary, here for the Society of Biblical Literature portion. I haven't yet, but Dan Ulrich is also here. He's the New Testament professor at Bethany, and I'm having dinner this Nancy Bowen, who was previously the Old Testament Hebrew Bible professor who I had for class when I was at Bethany. So it's neat just kind of connecting with some people. Very much unlike annual conference where I recognize most of the crowd. I do not recognize most of the, oh, there we go. Oh, sorry. Wow, now my face is, okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. My guess is there's probably 10 to 15,000 people here. It is the large,
Oh, wow.
religious scholar conference that is held in the Americas. It's a very global group, even though it's the American Academy of Religion, from a number of places around the world so far. Last evening, I went to literally, there are so many sessions, and you can come to American Academy and still go to the Society of Biblical Literature sessions. Like you can be a member of one, but you can, and you could literally pack your schedule with sessions from 7 a.m. to as late as 10 p.m. And that would be crazy, but I suppose some people do it. My brain is pretty well filled with just attending a couple. Yesterday, I think I went to 3. Last evening, I went to a session, and they're all organized in units. So there are units or kind of subgroups for nearly every possible of religious or related things you can think of. And of course, this is not Christian religion. This is, I've seen Buddhist monks walking around. They're really fascinating to be kind of in this interfaith environment. And a lot of people here who are not religious at all, but as a cultural product or from an anthropological perspective. Last evening session with a unit that's called Ecclesial Practices, and papers that were being presented were around practical applications. Overall theme for this conference is related to I can't remember what the full title is, but that's the flavor. So a lot of the sessions are related. So the session last evening was ecclesial practices related to nonviolence, and the 3 presentations were very unique. The first one was the gentleman was talking about role-playing games like Dragons and how that can potentially be used as a nonviolent technique in church settings or as an activity related to church settings, which was interesting. D&D person myself, but I can see that could be interesting for some people. The second person about preaching that is engaging the congregation. So not just preaching that someone stands up and talks for 15 minutes, but in discussion-based sermons, which I thought was interesting. That's something that I've kind of been thinking of anyway. And then the third, and she was particularly talking about a context that includes several unhoused people in a city. She's doing research on a congregation that's using methodology in a city in the South. And then the third presentation was around congregations' approach to racial justice. Research on several congregations in the Boston area, and what is working as they attempt to engage as congregations with racial justice in their community. So obviously, particularly those second 2 were of particular interest to me, thinking about our context in Elizabethtown. I'm hoping to get to a session a little bit later this morning, for me, later this morning, that is around interreligious and interfaith studies and practical applications context. So I'm kind of doing stuff here that's both related to my ministry work there at church and also my engaging with my teaching, this itch that I'm scratching for teaching. What else did I go to yesterday? There's just so like, the first evening I came, I went to, there's a group that meets called Mennonite Scholars and Friends. I'm one of the friends. So they were talking about queering the Bible. And interestingly, the first presentation I heard was by the new pastor at Mechanicsburg Church, Eric Seibert, who I think had been teaching at Messiah and recently left, talking about queering the story of Joseph. And so that was really fascinating. And then presentation after that, and then there's kind of a social time to connect. And so, yeah, so it was neat to not met Eric before, and so it was really, he's coming from the BIC tradition and now is pastoring then at Mechanicsburg. So it was nice to make that connection and chat with him a little bit. Drew Hart was there, so got to talk to him and reconnect with him a little bit. And then a lot of other persons, I would say there were maybe 25, 30 with that group, many of whom are connected with AMBS, the Annabelle Biblical Seminary. I forget if that's what the name is, but several people who are there. So yeah, so that's always good connections to make too. And then several presented yesterday morning in a session called Ecclesiological Institutions and talking about peace churches. Specifically, they were mentioning, although I'm asking questions to bring in the Church of the Brethren, they were particularly talking about Mennonite and Quakers. Church of the Brethren. And how, and some of the practices and kind of questioning how power plays out in even in peace church settings. So some interesting stuff there. Yeah.
Great
So
stuff.
it's been engaging. I'm really glad to be here. And really sad to be missing worship this morning, but glad to be here for this. And then I will be hosting the live stream chat in worship here in a few minutes.
Please tell us about how power plays out in the Anabaptist Pietist churches, the peace churches, so-called. I would like to hear that.
Maybe I can share a little bit more about that. I'm not sure I can do that in 1 minute.
No, I mean, sometimes.
But I took some notes from that session. As some of that too, I think will inform my dissertation writing. Actually want to ask the gentleman that shared about that. I'd like to ask him for his paper. So I would be happy to share more about that, do a faith formation session sometime soon and share a bit more about some of these sessions and how I think they can, what I think would be beneficial for others to hear.
Great. Well, Naomi, what time did you wake up this morning?
I forced to stay in bed till 5.
All right.
But I'm not sleeping well much past 3.
I
don't want to have to readjust too much when I get home.
No, I hear you. So good luck with that. And thank you for making the time to join us this morning. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we'll see you in the chat at worship this morning.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Naomi.
Bye. Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.